Good evening, YouTube. This is IronBrigadePiper coming to you from Southern California. And today I'm smoking out of my, I believe it's a no-brand briar pipe I picked up off of eBay, pre-owned pipe. But it actually smokes pretty well. Been trusty so far and hasn't let me down. But out of it today, I'm actually trying a new tobacco blend for the first time. Supposedly, from all the threads online and stuff, it's a legendary blend, and that's Escudo Navy Deluxe. First time I ever had it, and I'm trying it per the recommendation of Mike from Briar Blues, who smokes that stuff all the time from what I hear, and I'm actually enjoying it a lot. I definitely, I'm still developing my palate for tobaccos, but I do get that kind of grassy hayness, if hayness is a word. It is, but not the way I'm using it. And I do get a nice little tingle on my tongue from the perique. So it's very enjoyable because I do like spicy foods, and enjoying this blend a lot. But in my last video, I mentioned my name, Iron Brigade Piper. And I promised you guys that I would tell you a little bit more about why I chose that name. And if you recall in my intro video, I mentioned that I had previously participated in Civil War reenacting. And the unit that we portrayed was the 19th Indiana Volunteer Infantry Regiment, Company B. And the 19th Indiana was part of the Iron Brigade, the famous Iron Brigade. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Civil War history, but the Iron Brigade was a crack unit in the Army of the Potomac. And by a crack unit, for those who don't know military terminology, a crack unit is like a solid, reliable, dependable unit. If you call a unit your crack unit, think of it as like the best troops you have. So the Iron Brigade was a very tough unit, and they had their name for a reason. They actually, in some way, shape, or form, participated in almost every major battle of the American Civil War, all the way from the first Battle of Bull Run to Lee's surrender at the Appomattox Courthouse in 1865. So they have just a lot of history throughout the war, and a lot of great exploits under their belt. So these guys are famous for just their fight up Bronner's Farm, which was their first major engagement, where they basically fought the Stonewall Brigade toe to toe to a standstill. And the Stonewall Brigade, if you know Civil War history, was probably the best troops the Army of Northern Virginia had at the time in the Confederate Army, and they stood up to them, and they impressed their foes. In addition, the way that they supposedly got their name, the way the story goes, is at the Battle of South Mountain, when they were assaulting Turner's Gap. They were reaching the crest of the gap, the mountain, and they all of a sudden found themselves attacked on three sides by Confederate forces. And the commanding general of the Union Army, George B. McClellan, was observing the assault, and at that moment, as these Confederate forces come out and surround the Iron Brigade on three sides, the Iron Brigade's Corps commander, Joseph Hooker, rides up to get some orders from McClellan. And McClellan asks him, "Who are those men? They fight like iron, like they're made of iron." And of course, Joseph Hooker was all proud, and he said, "Oh, well, that's the Black Hat Brigade. Those are those boys from the West." And McClellan was impressed, and he again said, "Well, they stand like iron." And from that time forward, they were known as the Iron Brigade. They were also known, like I mentioned, Joseph Hooker called them the Black Hats. They were known as the Black Hat Brigade because they didn't wear your typical Union Army uniform of the time. Your typical Union Army uniform had the 4-button blue frock coat, and the infantrymen also wore like the blue kepi, kind of looks like a baseball cap. But the Iron Brigade wore what was called the 1858 pattern Hardy hat, which was this tall black hat with one side of the brim pinned up to the hat. And they also wore a 9-button frock coat that looked like a officer's coat that came kind of down midway to their thighs. It was a longer coat. And at the beginning of the war, they also wore these white gaiters down at their ankles, which were supposed to keep their pants from getting torn up while they're marching through rough terrain. So they had a very unique look, and their commanding general did this for a reason, because they were the only completely Western brigade in the Army of the Potomac, which fought on the Eastern theater of the war. And at that time, the Midwest was considered the West of the United States. So the unit was composed of the 2nd, 6th, and 7th Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry Regiments, as well as the 19th Indiana and the 24th Michigan, all Midwest units. And, you know, they're known for many great feats. Like I mentioned, the fight at Turner's Gap at South Mountain, Bronner's Farm. They cleared the cornfield at Antietam. But what they're most well known for is their defense of the line on the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg on July 1st, 1863. And the anniversary for that battle's coming up, so I think I'll tell you a little about that story a little later and go into detail. I'll make a special video about that. But just wanted to honor these guys because they were just an amazing group of guys when you study like what they did. And Yardism and a couple of the other guys the other day, they made a lot of videos, posted videos remembering the troops that assaulted the beaches of Normandy because it was the 75th anniversary yesterday. And it just got me thinking about not just those guys, but all the guys that we owe so much to, the Iron Brigade and all the other men throughout, you know, the U.S. military history that sacrificed and gave their all for us. And just made me think a lot about trying to do my best to uphold the values that they stood for and they fought for and they bled for. And you know, I just look around our country right now and I just don't see much of that anymore. Much of those values. I just see a lot of division, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. And it kind of disturbs me, and quite frankly, it's breaking my heart, guys. And I think we need to start speaking out against it more and start calling people back to remember the values that these guys fought for and died for, so that we don't take their sacrifice for granted. And remember that we're all Americans first and foremost. You know, I think one of the most detrimental things that happened to this country was when a two-party system, Republican and Democrat, was established in this country. And look at how it's divided us and how it's turning, you know, brother against brother and just countrymen against countrymen. There's just so much division right now. So I guess my final thought for this message is just to call us all to remember that we're first and foremost Americans. And we're citizens of this great country that's blessed us. And just want to call you guys to think about that. You know, next time you're discussing something with someone who doesn't hold the same opinion as you or the same position, just remember that they're also an American. They're your brother or they're your sister. So just wanted to throw that out there. Hope you guys have a great night and happy piping.